Okay. So I think we are live. Dear Charlaine, I'm so happy to have you on. And maybe for our audience who don't know you yet, for the ones who don't know you, because you are a pretty well-known person in the circularity, sustainability, environmental scene. I would like to introduce you and to say a few words about you because I mean, I'm always impressed. You are a seasoned environmental scientist. You're holding a master in science and in business administration. You're currently a candidate towards a doctorate in business leadership. You founded, or you're a founding partner at EcoPartners with over 30 years of experience leading complex sustainability and waste management projects across the mining, infrastructure, manufacturing, and oil sectors. Maybe this is the reason why you have all your gray hairs like me. You are known for guiding high stakes developments towards resilience, and you specialize in circular redesign solutions. And why I wanted to have you here is because in your doctorate in business leadership research, you explored how decision makers approach waste prevention and focusing on what enables blocks progress across the industries. And in addition to your advisory work, you also serve, Charlaine. I don't know how many hours your days have. You serve as a circularity ambassador and trainer, and with that, you empower organizations as well as individuals to learn how to close the loop, turn waste into value, generate sustainable profit. So, to our audience, usually we make some 30, 35 minutes in my webinars. Maybe that it can spill over a little bit. We're conscious of your time. But anyway, if you have questions, please write them in the comments so that Charlaine and or I can answer them, but mostly Charlaine. And so well, you know me. I love to delegate this one. So that everyone can benefit from your expertise and your wisdom. And my dear Charlaine, let's dive into the
There we are.
conversation.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm very much looking forward to this opportunity. I really appreciate the platform. So thank you very much for the invitation. Let's see.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll make it happen. We are seasoned people, so let's make it happen. So, in the opening, at the very beginning, before we dive into your doctorate work that centers around waste prevention and which explores what leads to it and how it manifests across systems. But before we dive into your dissertation and applied work, how did you arrive at this topic and what drew you into this specific corner of circular thinking?
So one of the things that I think comes up very big in society is that people have an impact on Mother Nature in whichever way. And to me, that's what I've been doing for the past 30 years is looking at the impacts that we have on Mother Nature. And I was thinking, no, man, there must be a better way. There must be a different way to approach this. So looking at all these impacts and the massive, now Mother Nature can make a plan with dust and with erosion and with, I mean, look at the volcanic eruptions and the ash that comes out there, and with the earthquakes. Mother Nature has a way to deal with it. What Mother Nature can't deal with, she can't deal with pollution. And the one thing that causes pollution is waste. So how do we stop the stuff that Mother Nature can't deal with? And so I wanted to know why. Why do we do that? How do we stop it? And we need to stop waste or prevent it.
Yes, I can only agree with. I mean, I never had a chance not to agree with you.
Oh, I'm sure it will come.
To the audience, Charlaine and I, when we have the chance to talk, I mean, we have very passionate debates, and usually I have always to bow. She has a good or very valid point. Anyway, that is yeah, and I love that you. Let me say it like this. I think it is so important that every one of us picks their domain, and that we work together so that we can move all these different elements and bring them slowly but surely together, so that we can also learn from it, and that we can digest it. But this leads me to the to your expertise. You worked across so many projects in mining and infrastructure and heavy industry. And these are usually the high waste sectors, right? What are the insights that emerge for you in the shift from managing waste at the end to preventing it from the start? And what were the key drivers you could identify for waste prevention that actually work?
The biggest insight I've gained working, so in my thesis, what I did was I went to real world examples, and I asked people what did they do to prevent waste. So I identified just over 100 projects that specifically related to waste prevention. And then so I had the data, and then I worked backwards and I got to the author, and then I interviewed the author and I asked, okay, so how did you do it? What did you do? And in that process, the biggest thing that came out that I didn't even think about. So I thought I was going to get waste prevention practices, and I was going to get systems, and I was going to, build a framework, nice, pretty, so that it would, look like something we would recognize. And what came out was something very different. What came out is that waste is different in everybody's head. And waste is a concept that starts in your head. So nobody has the same idea. You see, I maintain that I don't argue about color, because your mom didn't tell you that if the frequency vibrates at 400 hertz, then that's red. That's not what your mom said. Your mom said, this is red. This is red. So your brain says this is red. And we don't know what the terahertz was with that you related to the frequency. So I don't argue about that. But then I chose waste. I've nullified my own point. So my insight was that it's the mindset. So the biggest drivers that came out was mindset related. How do we change that mindset? What do we need from leadership to make the change? How do we innovate so that the change is possible? Because if we need to change, we need to innovate. And then only can we start implementing the practices that everybody else is referring to.
So besides the mindset, well, which is the main component, and which goes back to also Kovalek's work or research, and uh, who refers to Zimmerman, that resources aren't, but they become. And basically, it's coming to the same conclusion that
Yes.
um, resources, you can also say that waste is a resource, right? So
Correct.
it is
Correct.
it is about really how do we perceive or start to change things in such a way that we see value. And can I cite something from
Yeah.
my,
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean, this guy, I think, he, like Paul Hawkins' Ecology of Commerce, this book changed the trajectory of Ray Anderson, the late Ray Anderson. He wrote this book in 2008 during the financial crisis, and he opened up the figures with regard to his company interface, and he's very open about how to make money, how sustainability help them and the environment help them to move forward. But also, he says this book deals with what it takes to run a profitable modern business with the environment in mind, doing no harm to the earth, and taking from the earth nothing that cannot be renewed naturally and rapidly by the earth. And this, then he continues, it is about a new business model that can generate not just bigger profits, and we will come to that, but better, more legitimate ones. And I would say to all the very brilliant people who are out there who know how to dissect the numbers of companies. A company doesn't stop at its financials. It is a very solid foundation. It is how can you make your business legitimate, and what is the legacy you will leave behind that. And I think that building new business models, especially in circularity, it allows you right now really to become a major player in your respective industry or even beyond. And if you approach this mindset shift of considering, yeah, that also waste is a resource that you can
Absolutely.
benefit
Absolutely.
from,
And
right?
but using that scenario, then if you think of waste as a resource before it became waste in its pre-waste state, let's
Mhm,
call it that. Europe calls it that, so let's call it that. In its pre-waste state, what can you do with its very many components? Because you
mhm,
see, in Mother Nature, what happens is that she builds ecosystems, and she has this ability to have a useful opportunity for everything. I mean, there's little creatures that does one job, and they do it brilliantly,
mhm,
and that enables another little organism to do another job brilliantly, and it's this combination, this co-creation, that enables the mechanism. And I think that's what we're missing in business. So we
yes,
build these long supply chains where we miss the opportunity of co-creating and building ecosystems, and that is where I think the biggest opportunity sits, in building business models. Because if we could loop into the various little components so that we co-create, I think then we have something.
yes.
My master's in science was built around the economic feasibility of stranded mines, and what happened there was, I there's deposits that can be utilized, but they're not payable because the distance is too far. And I created a hub and spoke mechanism where you could, if you generate hubs where you co-create, You actually have an enabling facility where the infrastructure allows you to build better business models. And I think it's this togetherness, this co-creation that enables the business models we're not yet utilizing.
I totally agree with you, and especially you allow also the strengths and the expertise of your teams to embed them in your ecosystem of co-creation, and that
Correct.
is the but I like the idea. You know, when you were talking, I was seeing an ecosystem, a traditional ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, but then I was thinking, we should see, can we have Mother Earth, be sitting at the table, because
Yes,
there
yes.
are, I mean, movements, and despite that it goes into the right direction, it doesn't take into account often what you say, the little creature which are, only designed, I mean, which are designed to do a specific task. And I'm talking here about bioeconomics. It's a good way, but it's not enough, because we are simplifying something which is often way more complex that we, I mean, understand. People coming from being scientists and etc., or I mean, are coming from this field, understand it way better. The ones who are, working in this field, but business administration people, not really. They usually know how to read, the P&L, and the balance sheets, and do some other things. Yes, but I mean, it's about this plurality of approaches and solution finding. So, something which struck me when we were discussing, you were saying, there are at least 50 circular business models out there. And we're thinking, I thought about 12. So where are the the others? Could you unpack that? And do you still see us in an exploratory phase or learning phase? Um, um, or do you see already a type of business model emerging?
I'm going to share, if I could, quickly. Can you see what I'm sharing?
Let me see if not yet.
Okay. But if you look at the value hill,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that come through in the value hill is that you have a user phase in the front, and you have the degeneration phase in the back, if
Yes.
I could call it that. In the user phase, people usually are not thinking of the opportunities to generate um, alternative business models for whatever reason. So if you start thinking of using material passports or blockchain to manage materials more responsibly, if you're thinking of the design requirements, if you're thinking of utilizing bio-based materials as replacement materials, and we've now spoken about how we could integrate that in an ecosystem to build this ecosystem, then you will see that in terms of green procurement and extended producer responsibility and life cycle analysis, there's opportunities in business models that flow out of these tools that generate opportunities to a vast majority of people. So if we look at the opportunities that's arising, we don't all have the skills yet to apply them, but it's certainly an opportunity for us to start using. So there's a lot of focus I find in the value hill that's related to specific things that's recovery of minerals or recovery of
Yes.
materials or recovery of and they focus on very specific value items. And I think we miss the opportunity. We're not looking at the value of all items.
Yes.
And because of that, we miss the opportunities in circular economy, I think. So if you look at the value wheel, I posted a post on LinkedIn today
Yes.
with the messy the messy value wheel, where you can see the a vast majority of the tools sits in the front of the cycle. And if we start engaging with that, that is where I believe that the largest amount of business models sit.
Yes, absolutely. And also, it is there where, which enables us to reduce the extraction of new
Correct.
material resources as much as possible. Because I think that this is a, for me, as a business person, it is really the opportunity to rethink how we produced so far, because I mean we haven't really changed from, let's say, I don't want to go to the Greek time, the time of the Greeks or Romans and etc., but also in then afterwards. But if we look at the Industrial Revolution up to now, the concept of doing business is has changed in the last 10 to 15 years, more now, 15 years, through platform thinking. And we are learning about that. And behind every ecosystem, we need to have a platform. The
Yes,
thing
yes.
is that if we think that platform thinking is going to resolve by itself all the problems, platform thinking can be a very valuable tool, but it can be even a higher extraction tool than the traditional business. And this is something where most of the platform thinkers are not aware of, that they're basically not handing over two knives, but even four, five, six, seven knives to people, and where we need really to learn how to, when you said earlier about the mindset shift, it is really about considering, looking at what I have already, this material sitting here, so,
Yes.
or resource,
Yes.
why should I not as a business person see what I can do with that? So it's really about the opportunity thinking. So because the two of us are business people too, from these, from the thinking you are doing on business models and the ones emerging, and you were saying, I mean, on the value hill, most of are on the, on the left side of the value hill. um, how do these models contribute to profitability? Because this is often the critique that we get. Well, it changes a lot. We don't understand it. Profit, because we have to invest so much. How do they contribute to profitability?
I think, in my view, we have a mindset about profit too, and we need to understand that.
Mhm.
Um, so I live in South Africa, for those who don't know, and in South Africa, survival is still a very real thing. 75% of our youth does not have work. Um, so graduates, 75% of our youth graduates does not have work. Um, and they need to survive somehow. Now, here's the point. We can, as a society, start generating businesses where social impact actually is the profit we gain. Where, when we start looking at profit from a, we each get a respectful um, opportunity to generate an income as a greater opportunity than rolling in money. And if that is the case, isn't that a business opportunity? Shouldn't we just dive into that as well? And if we want to reconsider, is the profit margin the king that it should be? Or are there other things in business that's actually more valuable?
I agree, I mean, wholeheartedly with what you're saying. I'm thinking about young CEOs, founders, but I mean, they're also greedy ones, of our age, um, but who are, for instance, talking, and I'm really being shocked that there is not so much, often their analytics are very highly brilliant, but hyper capitalist. And I'm shocked to see, especially in the younger generation, to see two flows of people: the ones who don't care, well, who don't care yet. Let's be, I mean, but who take as an example, who take the business model of Palantir as the business model to reorient or evaluate other businesses to. And I'm just thinking, are you selling your soul already so young to the devil? I mean, seriously. I mean, and and you have the other ones who are saying, okay, we need to stop this, this profit thinking, exactly what you were thinking or telling, and go more into how can we, with degrowth, past growth, rethink our approach in such a way that it is more equitable, more it is bringing more justice and fair to everyone. Now, I still think, though, because where the time window we are, that companies who redefine themselves can still be very profitable. And I'm just highlighting again to this book because he speaks about his numbers. Really, okay, they're now almost 50, I mean, over 15 years old, but I mean, these are really, he shows what it brings. And also, there's one thing you were alluding to. It is also that when we go the route of circularity and regeneration, we build another way of building trust and loyalty with clients. I do not like the name customers. It's always such a cloudy thing. I prefer the one-to-one relation with clients, or let's call it also customers, where you can have a dialogue. And we were talking about the ecosystem, and it's really about opening up, the possibilities of redoing business. And I think that with all the thinkers that we have, also scholars who are basically saying we need to change things, but former scholars or who are still active, like Stahel in Switzerland,
Yeah,
or,
yeah, yeah,
or,
yeah.
or also Gilbert Probst or Peter Gomez, and who are saying, yes, I mean, this is about system thinking. It is about understanding, how, if we pull here, what are the triple effects, on the other side. So I think that with the technology we have, we can bring transparency and visibility also for business leaders to understand what are the consequences of the decision within their boards, within their teams, so that they can approach a better solution. Because we don't know. We seriously, I think, I pretend we do not know if we go in with good intention into that direction, if it will really turn out to be having been the right direction, or is it maybe the other one? And we have so many solutions where we're still learning. But anyway, let me come back to the questions.
Okay, but before you go into the questions, one of the things, and you've alluded to it earlier, is that Mother Earth needs a seat at the table. I mean, and if we what during my research, I worked with some indigenous people. I worked throughout the world, but some of the indigenous people had a very interesting response to my questions, and
Mhm.
it sort of took me you know, I don't want to say from which country they're from, because then I sort of give it away. But what happened was I asked the question about materials and how materials are used, and they sort of were perplexed about it, and I dug deeper and want to really hear what they were saying, and their respect for materials and why it should be wasted was palatable. So
Mm-hmm.
so they could. Um, it's almost as if the materials themselves had a soul, and it
Mm-hmm.
need to be respected for that thing, for the soul that it is. And I thought, maybe, in a materialistic world, we didn't we gave up that thinking. And when we perceive materials to have a soul, materials that were created similar to us, um, then how would we change it? How would we change that relationship that we have with materials? And if we then go in that direction, what would our business models look like? How would materials also be considered in
Mm-hmm.
this business model?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, it was a transforming experience. Yeah, doing a doctorate does that, but very, very much not what I expected.
I would love to be at your place right now, the doctor. Julie. But I mean, that is another thing. But I recall about that, when you say that, about a discussion I had in 2003 with a brilliant student. And I recall I was saying to that person, if you build this pen, if it is built here in Switzerland or Germany or wherever, or in China, and even if the price in Switzerland is maybe, let's say, 3,000 Swiss francs, and this is maybe €1 in China or wherever it is built, if it is built with love, the result will show up on the product. And I can tell you, this one person looked at me at that time. She was 24, like, you are completely out of, you're completely crazy. And I had 2 years ago a discussion about that, laughing with that person and saying, "Do you recall when I told you that?" And she only looked at me and said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." But she wasn't believing in it. And I think it is often, let me say it like this: why do we like to have luxury furniture, uh, items, products? It is because they are done with expertise, but also with a love to do it. So we are not so far away from what you were just saying. It is how we treat the resources and how we look at the resources that we will get often the solutions. But anyway, because I mean we're running out of time. Metrics, KPIs. When you put in place a circular business model, do you know, or how can you assess that it is delivering impact? And how does it differ from classical sustainability metrics, where I mean companies ought to to reply to, or to make them or report
Oh,
them?
I had a good question on the value hill this morning, where they said we're not measuring time as a value concept in business.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, gosh, it's so true. I will still think about that, but yeah. Um, my short answer to that is, we should define metrics that preserve value. So, because different business models would measure different things. I mean, it's hard to say this metric above that metric. But if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, they typically consider values that should be considered. How do we reduce poverty? How do we ensure that there's sustainable consumption? What do we do in terms of, and those metrics have been around for a while. My concern is that we are not actually capturing the value that we have. So in South
Mm.
Africa, what we've done is that the ecosystem, we have very complex ecosystems. And the ecosystems that we deal with produce services. So we have equated services um, to ecosystems, and then we evaluate how these services are impacted or enhanced by whatever activity we do, and that then becomes the measure to measure the value, because the ecosystem provides a wide variety of services that we assume is free, which it's not,
Yes,
but
yes,
we do.
yes. That is true. That is true. Now, you move between environmental science, legal, compliance, business, finance. How do you bridge these domains when supporting circular transitions?
The biggest concept or construct that I search for is purpose. So if I could find the purpose why we should do this, and often when you deal with clients or with people that you're advising, um, they believe their purpose is to make desks, for example,
Yeah.
and that's their purpose. And when we have the conversation, um, we would have the conversation: is the purpose not maybe to create a workspace that is flat? And is there another way to create that workspace?
Mm-hmm.
Or is their purpose maybe to create a place where we could aggregate around something?
Mm-hmm.
Is there another way to do that? Um, is there a business model there? So when we define the purpose differently, we could actually generate a wide variety of alternatives in that space. So purpose to me is quite important. It's a big anchor, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course data. It's my other big anchor. Um, Show me your data, and I'll tell you your story. It's simple.
Yes, it is.
um,
It is.
I I gain a lot of information from data, and using purpose and data together usually finds a way through in which circularity becomes the logical next choice.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Yes, yes. What are when you work with decision makers? What are they? The aha moments, the most common ones. But this morning I was thinking, is aha moment enough? Or like, what's his name? Tom Peters said, the pursuit of the wow. And we're usually very addicted to the wow. What would be a wow a moment that you can share with us from a decision maker?
Um, Decision makers, when they realize that the materials that they've always used could be replaced with an alternative, a big alternative that will generate a greater income. I think that is the a big wow moment. That how to change their purpose, that's a big thing. The other big thing that happens is that they realize that waste is a concept in their head.
Hmm.
That mindset change, and how they reframe that so that they could use every little bit, so that they don't need a waste bin. In fact, it becomes an opportunity to generate a greater income. So I think some of the biggest aha moments is how to sequence their business in a way that there's opportunity in abundance. They now
Yes.
need to choose how.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I so my last question, because I have so many, ideas, so I need to focus on our conversation because I could easily continue the conversation on that one too. Um, I would use as the closing question for our conversation. Place yourself now in 5 years' time from now, looking ahead. Where do you think circularity innovation will make the biggest leap? And in which sectors, value chains will be? I dislike the word disruption because it has been used so much in a negative, context. You disrupt someone, your competitor, to take them over. I love the concept of Kim and Muborgne, beyond disruption. So let me rephrase my question: which sectors of value chain will be most beyond disrupted?
I think, and this is not a common answer, I think the creatives will outshine the rest. I think
I love that.
the I think the ask would be biggest in that space,
Hmm.
and I think it's it would be the ability to rise above and to look at it from a different angle that would enable greater understanding and bigger growth in the era that we live in, because the strategy and the focus and the waste that we've generated up to now all look backwards and then said, okay, based on backwards, the next thing that we should do is X. I think it's the looking forward ones. It is the ones that can imagine a different future. It is the ones that has a priority beyond what we've seen happening in the past. That would make the difference.
I love that because it doesn't focus on one single answer, but the answers lie in us. And Charlene, this was again a wonderful exchange. Thank you so much. And yeah, we need to continue to do that if you want,
Absolutely, absolutely. I
because
really enjoy it.
yes, absolutely. And for our audience, I don't see any question, but in case of you have, I mean, we could sit there with our coffee or teacups, and we would continue to chat around. If you have any question, please ask them to Charlene, and directly or in the comments below this post. And if you want, I mean, where can people reach you, and what is maybe the, if you can also explain a little bit the type of work that you're currently focusing on at with your company, and so that people can reach out to you.
I love to train. I love to teach. I love to change mindsets, and now I have the results that show that. I would really appreciate it if you need a trainer. I guarantee a different outcome, um, and I guarantee greater profits. so um, because I can unlock potential where you think it's not possible. So I do think that there's opportunity. I'm easily reachable on LinkedIn. Very I'm active on LinkedIn. I spend some time there every day, because one of the other things that came out of LinkedIn was community is quite important in my research as well. Community is quite important. We need to build together and co-create. And I'm one of those that believe we need to build together and co-create. And
Yes,
that's why I welcome community.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Charlene, for your what you shared, and continue your good work. Continue to shift the mindsets. I can tell you, dear audience. I mean, you're getting out differently out of a conversation with Charlene. And in the good sense, in the good way, it brings you different perspectives. So why not? Just try it. Oh, I have a question. Sarah ask, what challenges have you experienced trying to communicate these tenets of finding value? Good question.
Um, Very good question. People perceive value, as I said, uniquely to themselves, and you need to find the touch point with a person as to see what they perceive as valuable. As I shared, people do not perceive the services of Mother Earth as valuable, and to me that's, that's a non-issue. I mean, every service Mother Earth provides, starting with oxygen, is life-savingly valuable. um, but but when you deal with people, the challenge that you often face is that their perception of value is very limited, and therefore you need to put in a crowbar and flex it a bit so that you can alter the value perception, so that you can reach each other across the line. And then once that aha moment appears, you actually get an opportunity to create the value in the space where you want to.
That is a very philosophical and I mean answer, and thank you for that. And I can tell you that I'm practicing meditation, and when you get taught that there's basically no distinction between you, the space, a stone, the air, whatever. It is a concept which is kind of mind blowing, and which opens up quite a lot of new experiences. And I think that we are only at the very beginning of a type of conscious journey, isn't it? And
Yeah.
Sinalo, thank you very much also for always sharing your knowledge so generously. I totally agree. And I wish everyone a wonderful day, and talk to you soon, Charlene. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
Bye bye.
Enjoy. Bye bye.